The Arizona night was warm and dry, the kind of night that only exists out here. The air didn't cool down even after sunset, like the desert refused to let go of the heat it had soaked up all day. Dmitri pulled off the highway into the brightly lit parking lot of a pilot travel center, just another stop along the road. One of many in a single night. Fuel up, grab something to eat, stretch your back after hours behind the wheel. He killed the engine. The metal of the truck ticked softly as it cooled, like the rig was exhaling after a long run. Somewhere nearby another cab door slammed, but no footsteps followed. The truck stood in rows, lined up neatly like a herd of massive dark animals, under harsh artificial light. No shouting, no chaos, just a distant hum of the interstate and the quiet hiss of fuel pumps. Nothing unusual, just another night like hundreds before. He was 42. That kind of age where you don't build illusions anymore, but you're not counting the years yet either. He had been driving trucks for over a decade and had long stopped thinking of the road as an adventure. The road was work, rhythm, habit. Dmitri didn't like noise, didn't blast music, didn't talk on the radio unless he had to, didn't get pulled into parking lot arguments. He drove steady, no sudden moves, like he was trying not to piss off the truck or the road itself. There was a time he believed in signs. Don't head out in bad weather. Don't argue before a run. Don't laugh at other people's fears. Life wore that out of him. All that was left was caution, not superstition, learned instinct. If something feels off, you stop, you wait it out. That's how you stay out of trouble. He wasn't lucky, he just knew the road, by small things. The sound of the engine, the way silence outside the window changes, the feeling of emptiness ahead. He didn't have a family anymore, a son somewhere far away. Rare calls, short conversations about nothing. A truck cab that felt more like home than anything else. A couple of familiar routes, and nights that all looked the same. Dmitri was heading home. New Year's was close, just a few days away. He didn't count it by dates, he counted it by runs. This one, then one shorter haul. And that was it. Home. Not really a celebration. No noise, no guests, just warmth. A small tree in the corner, his son on video call, and a promise to himself. This year he wouldn't spend New Year's on the road, so he didn't waste time, didn't stretch stops, didn't take unnecessary detours. He wanted to finish on time, make it. Dmitri didn't believe in anything supernatural. He'd seen enough strange things not to be surprised anymore. But he explained everything. Fatigue, bad signal, light tricks. He was a man of the real world. Asphalt, headlights, schedules. That's why that night felt like nothing special. He wasn't looking for a story, wasn't waiting for signs. He just wanted a hot dog, a Coke, and to get back on the road. Sometimes that's enough for the road to decide you're the right one. The starlights were painfully bright, fluorescent, flat, unreal. It smelled like coffee, fried food, grease, and cheap plastic, a smell every trucker knows too well. Dmitri grabbed a hot dog without looking, filled a cup with Coke. Ice clinked against the sides. He was heading to the register when he felt it, someone watching him. An old man sat near the window, half in shadow. His face was hard to make out. Only his hands were clear, thin, sinewy, too still. He was looking out at the parking lot, like he was choosing who would leave next. "Night driving?" the man asked without turning. "Yeah," Dmitri said. "Always." The old man nodded, paused, then added, "You're not from around here." "Not a question." Passing through, Dmitri shrugged. The old man gave a strange smile. No smile in it. "Then listen," he said quietly. "If your GPS tries to route you past two guns, don't take it." Pause. "There's a place there. Bad place." "Bears?" Dmitri asked automatically. The man shook his head. "No." He lowered his voice, like he didn't want anyone else hearing. "They find trucks empty, doors open, keys still inside. People step out and don't come back." Dmitri frowned. "Step out to where?" The old man finally turned. His eyes were pale, too focused. "The hills." Pause. "The cave. If the road takes you there, it means it needed you." He looked back out the window. "Places like that don't force you," he added. "They just wait until you step in on your own." Dmitri reached for napkins, just to do something. When he looked back, the seat was empty, coffee untouched, like no one had ever been there, the cashier later said. Dmitri had been alone the whole time. Dmitri left about 10 minutes later. Not right away. He sat in the cab, finished his food, took a few sips of Coke, checked his mirrors, like he was looking for confirmation that everything was still where it should be. The old man's story didn't scare him. It stuck with him, like something you can't shake. He caught himself replaying fragments. "Don't come back. Doesn't let go." He started the engine and pulled back onto the road. The GPS recalculated almost immediately. Suggested a shortcut. Secondary road. Got some time. Normal. Happens all the time at night. Dmitri didn't question it. The further he drove, the heavier the night felt. Not darker. Heavier. Like the air had weight. The radio started crackling. At first just static. Then voices. Fragments. Laughter. Breathing. Nothing clear. Nothing you could hold on to. He switched stations. Then another. The noise stayed. Just changed shape. He was about to turn it off when a road sign appeared in the headlights. 2 guns. White letters. Nothing unusual. But Dmitri immediately thought of the old man. He drove past. Didn't slow down. And that's when the engine jerked. He kept driving. The road ahead was empty. Too empty. For the first time in years, Dmitri caught himself thinking that he didn't want to leave the highway, and at the same time, it felt like he already had, without noticing when it happened. The truck stopped suddenly. No skid, no screech, no warning, like movement itself had simply been turned off. Dmitri instinctively pressed the clutch and glanced at the dashboard. There were no warning lights, no errors. The engine was still running, but there was no pull, as if the road under the wheels had stopped being a road at all. The signal dropped immediately. The CB radio went dead. The phone showed no service, and the GPS froze before resetting, leaving only a single point on the screen, somewhere ahead, near the dark hills. He muttered under his breath. Stuff like this happens. Dead zones, interference, old towers. Nothing unusual for long-haul routes. He shut off the engine, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped out of the cab. He just needed to check. Maybe the ground was bad. Maybe he'd hit some weird patch where electronics acted up. And right away he understood that the silence here was different. Not empty, like highway silence at night, but heavy. like the air wasn't letting sound travel. Even his footsteps sounded wrong, dull, muted, like the ground wasn't fully accepting them. He turned back toward the trucks. It stood normally. No smoke, no smell, no sign of anything broken. He aimed the flashlight ahead, and the beam caught a dark opening between the rocks. At first he thought it was just a split, one of those dry desert cuts you see all over Arizona. He walked closer and realized it wasn't a crack. It was an entrance, low, uneven, with edges smoothed not by tools, but by time. The rock around it was darker, as if it had been touched often, as if people had come here before. Dmitri stopped. He wasn't planning to go inside. He just needed to check. Maybe there was an old access path. Maybe the signal would be better closer to the hills. Maybe someone was there. The CB radio clicked. A weak sound came through the speaker, barely audible. Dmitri lifted the mic. "Anyone out there?" he said, keeping his voice steady. There was a short burst of static, and then something moved inside the cave. Not footsteps. Something else, like an echo that shouldn't have come back that fast. He pointed the flashlight inside. The beam hit a stone wall, then slipped deeper, revealing that the passage continued. Not sharply downward, not straight inward. It felt like the cave started slowly, almost deliberately, as if giving you time to change your mind. Dmitri exhaled and stepped forward, not out of curiosity, out of calculation. If the signal was better near the hills, he'd check. If someone was inside, he'd hear them. If not, he'd be back in a minute. He left the cab door open, held the flashlight tighter, and marked the surroundings in his head. Rock on the left, ledge on the right, exit still visible. That was important. The first steps inside didn't scare him. The ground was dry and solid. The air was colder, but not sharp. Only when he took a few more steps did he notice something was wrong. The light from the entrance was dimmer than it should have been. He turned around. The exit was still there, but the distance to it was slightly greater than it had been just a moment ago. And that was when Dmitri realized he had already gone farther than he intended. At first, he didn't recognize what he was looking at. The shapes along the wall seemed like ordinary rocks, pale, dry, too smooth for a cave, but nothing that immediately stood out. Only when the beam of the flashlight lingered a little longer did Dmitri understand. They were skulls. They were placed along the wall in a straight line, as if someone had arranged them deliberately, leaving a clear passage between them. Not scattered, not thrown around. Set in order, waiting. A little farther down near the base of the wall, ribs lay spread out in a fan shape, carefully arranged, almost symmetrical, not the way bones end up after a collapse of animals. Dmitri stopped. He didn't panic, just a strange uncomfortable sensation, like he had stepped into someone else's space without permission. He took another step, and one of the skulls turned. Not suddenly, not with a sound. It simply shifted position, as if slowly following the movement of the light. Dmitri flinched. The space behind him felt tighter. Not a sound. Not a change in air, just pressure. He swallowed, and then he heard it. A whisper, not around him, not from the darkness. Inside his head. The voice was his own. Same tone, same rhythm, same way his thoughts formed. It didn't speak in full sentences. It finished what he hadn't yet fully thought. There's nothing here. is just a cave. You've been in worse places. Dmitri tightened his grip on the flashlight. The whisper didn't convince. It suggested, like an inner voice, but slightly ahead of his own thinking. And that was the worst part, because he understood. This wasn't an echo. And it wasn't imagination. It was a reflection. In old stories about places like this, it was said simply, if a cave starts speaking in your voice, you're already part of it. Dmitri turned sharply, just for the second to check the exit. It wasn't there. The tunnels didn't change all at once. At first, almost imperceptibly. Dmitri kept walking, noting turns, memorizing rocks, edges, shapes. He was sure he was keeping direction, but a few minutes later he stepped into a place he had already seen. The same narrow bend, the same crack in the wall, the same skull, tilted slightly as if listening. Dmitri stopped. He turned back, slowly, without panic. Walked a few steps, turned right, and ended up in the same place again. The cave wasn't confusing him. It was guiding him. Bones began to appear on the floor where there hadn't been any before, not scattered, collected. The skeletons were assembled from different remains, as if someone didn't quite know what a human body looked like, but tried to rebuild it from memory. Ribs attached to the wrong spines. Skulls turned backward. Some had a second skull inside the chest, smaller, darkened, as if burned. Dmitri took a step, and the bones under his foot collapsed. He jerked back, pulling his leg away. But as soon as he raised the flashlight, he heard a dry, unpleasant sound. The bones were reassembling, not where they had been. Ahead, blocking the passage. A shadow stretched from the ceiling. At first one, then another. They had no shape, only movement like smoke. The shadows slid along the stone, flowed from ceiling to walls, merging, separating. In Apache stories, there were beings that didn't take the body. They led a person off the path until he forgot where he was going. The shadows didn't touch Dmitri, but they pressed. Where they thickened, the air grew heavier. Where they parted, it felt like there was a way through. The ground under his feet looked solid, the same stone, the same dry surface. He took a step, and the floor vanished beneath him. He barely felt the fall. Just a sudden drop in his stomach, and a hard impact that knocked the air out of his lungs. His body slammed against the rock, rolled, and then stopped. He tried to scream, but the sound broke off immediately. Dmitri was wedged inside a narrow vertical crack, his body jammed tightly between the stone walls. His legs dangled without reaching the bottom. His arms were pinned so close to his sides that he couldn't move them. The flashlight slipped from his hand and fell somewhere below. The light disappeared. Only darkness remained, and his breathing, short, uneven, too loud in the silence. He tried to take a deeper breath, and couldn't. The stone pressed against his chest, as if the cave itself was tightening around him. No, he rasped. The sound dropped downward and never came back. Time passed, seconds, maybe minutes. He couldn't tell. His shoulders began to go numb, his fingers trembled. And then the first real thought came, sharp and clear. If he lost consciousness now, he would never leave this place. That's when he heard movement, at first far away, then closer. Something crawled along the rock, slowly, without hurry. He heard the scraping of claws, dry, dragging, deliberate. Dmitri tried to pull himself up. The stone shifted, crumbled, and fell onto his face. A sharp edge cut across his eyebrow and warm blood ran into his eye. He groaned, and immediately heard a response. Not a voice, not a cry. A quiet, satisfied sound, as if something had just understood exactly where he was. Shapes appeared in the darkness. First hands, long, thin, with fingers bent in the wrong way. Then faces, if they could even be called faces. Empty eye sockets, mouths stretched too wide, skulls covered in something dark and wet. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. In Apache stories, there were creatures that didn't kill right away. They came to those who were stuck between paths, those who could neither move forward nor return. They waited until a person broke on their own. Dimitri's breathing quickened. The air felt thinner. His chest burned. One of the shapes leaned closer. He caught the smell, old, rotting, like wet earth that had held bones for too long. Something cold touched his leg. He jerked instinctively, and suddenly felt the support beneath him give slightly. The rock holding him loosened. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. Dmitri screamed and forced himself upward with everything he had left. His shoulder cracked with pain. The skin on his arms tore against the stone, but he slipped free. His body dropped, hit the ground, rolled. For a second he didn't even understand that he was lying on the floor, that he could breathe again. The creatures were already close, reaching, sliding, pulling themselves forward across the stone. Dmitri got up and ran. He didn't think about direction, didn't look back. Behind him he heard cracking, dragging, wet movement. He could feel breathing, not his own. Passages blurred past him, narrow, wide, twisting. The flashlight was gone somewhere in the dark, but he no longer looked for light. He ran because stopping meant they would reach him. And somewhere ahead, faint, almost like a mockery, there was wind. The wind ahead wasn't strong. It didn't rush toward him or pull him forward. It just existed, a faint movement in the air, barely noticeable, but different from the dead stillness behind him. Dmitri ran toward it. The tunnel narrowed, then widened again, then twisted sharply to the left. His shoulder slammed into the wall, but he didn't stop. Pain barely registered now. His body moved on instinct alone. Behind him the sounds changed, less scraping, more sliding, as if the things following him no longer needed to crawl, as if they were learning. The air grew colder. The smell of rot faded, replaced by something else, dry, dusty, like old stone that hadn't seen light in centuries. For a second, Dmitri thought he saw something ahead. A faint gray shape. An opening. He pushed harder. His legs shook. His breath tore at his throat. Every inhale burned. The tunnel dipped suddenly. His foot caught on something. He fell. Hard. The impact knocked the air out of him again, and for a moment he couldn't move. His vision blurred, darkness pulsing at the edges. He rolled onto his back, forced himself to breathe. The ceiling above him was low, too low. The walls were closer, closing, not moving fast, but moving. Stone grinding against stone with a deep, slow pressure. The cave was narrowing. Dmitri dragged himself forward, pushing with his hands. The floor was uneven, covered in dust and small fragments of bone. His palm slipped. He looked down and saw a skull, fresh, not aged, not worn. The bone was pale, almost clean, like it hadn't been here long. Dmitri froze, and then he understood. This place didn't just keep what entered it, it replaced it. He scrambled forward. The space tightened further. His shoulders brushed both walls now. His jacket caught on rough edges, tearing. Behind him the sound returned, closer, not hurried, certain. He forced himself through the narrowing passage, ignoring the pain, ignoring the tearing fabric, ignoring the panic rising in his chest. The faint gray light ahead grew stronger, not bright, but real. And for the first time since stepping inside, Dmitri felt something else. Not fear, direction. He lunged forward. The tunnel sloped upward. The air shifted, warmer, thinner, alive. He pushed again harder, his hands slipping, nails scraping against stone. The opening was just ahead, so close he could see the outline of the rocks outside. And then something grabbed his boot. Dmitri kicked. Once. Twice. The grip didn't fight back. It didn't need to. It waited. Like everything else in this place. Dmitri twisted his leg, wrenching it free with a sharp, tearing motion. His boot came off. He didn't stop. Didn't look back. He crawled the last few feet and pulled himself out of the cave. Dmitri lay on the ground for a few seconds, not moving, trying to understand if he was really outside. The air felt different, lighter, warmer, alive. He dragged in a breath and held it, as if afraid it might disappear. The desert night was still there, the same dry heat, the same dark outline of the hills. Nothing had changed. Only he had. He rolled onto his side and forced himself to sit up. His hands were shaking. His clothes were torn. One boot was gone. Behind him, the cave entrance looked smaller than it should have been. Just a narrow split in the rock. Nothing that could have held everything he had just seen. Nothing that could have held anything at all. Dmitri turned away from it immediately. He got to his feet and started walking back toward the truck. Each step felt unreal, like he was moving through something thicker than air. He didn't look back again. The truck stood exactly where he had left it. Engine off. Cab door still open. Light inside faint and ordinary, like nothing had happened. He climbed in, slammed the door, and locked it without thinking. Only then did he allow himself to breathe normally. His hands moved automatically. Key, ignition. The engine started on the first try, like nothing had ever been wrong. Dmitri sat there for a moment, staring straight ahead. Then he put the truck in gear and pulled back onto the road. The GPS worked again. Signal returned. The radio came back to life. Everything was normal. Too normal. Dmitri drove without turning the radio on, without touching the GPS. He didn't need directions anymore, he just needed distance. About 20 minutes later, he passed a sign again. 2 guns, white letters in the headlights. Exactly the same, as if he had never left. Dmitri didn't stop, didn't slow down. He drove past it and kept going until the hills disappeared behind him. By the time he reached the next truck stop, the sky had already started to lighten. Early morning, cold air finally settling over the desert. Dmitri parked, shut off the engine, and just sat there. He didn't go inside, didn't check anything. He just sat and listened to his own breathing. When he finally looked down at his hands, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. Fine gray dust covered his fingers, packed into the lines of his skin, under his nails. He rubbed his thumb across his palm. The dust didn't come off. Later, much later, when he would try to explain what happened, He wouldn't talk about the cave. Not really. He would say the truck stalled, that he stepped out, that he got disoriented, that he hit his head, that he imagined the rest. That was easier. That sounded real. But there was one thing he never told anyone. Not the police, not the dispatcher, not even himself, out loud. When he got back into the truck that night, just before starting the engine, for a second, he was sure there was someone sitting in the passenger seat, not moving, not breathing, just there. And ever since that night, Dmitri never drive through that part of Arizona again. Not because of the road, not because of the cave, because sometimes late at night, when the cab is quiet, he can hear breathing, not his own, and it always sounds like it's coming from the right. If you've made it this far, you're ready for the next story. It's already waiting on the channel.